Welcome to That Digital Take. I'm your host, Tori Webster. This episode of That Digital Take is brought to you by Chatter's Hair Salon, proudly Canadian and your go-to destination for all things hair for over 30 years. Whether you're refreshing your color, trying a bold new style, or stocking up on your favorite products, Chatter's has you covered. And right now, they're treating my listeners to an exclusive offer. Get 20% off your retail purchase with online code DIGITAL20 at checkout. Some exclusions apply. Don't miss out. Visit chatters.ca and give your hair the care it deserves. Welcome back to the pod, everybody. Can you believe we have our first ad read? How special was that? I need to give you guys some context because I've been working with Chatters for years. They were like one of my OG brand partners. So the fact that they believe in me and in the podcast means so much to me. So definitely use that code DIGITAL20 because you're going to get some discounts on your hair care. I buy all of my hair care products at Chatters. So anyways, I hope you can avail of that. And thank you to the Chatters team for believing in me. And also welcome back to the pod. So sometimes I think that people don't notice when I just make up my own rules, and I took a 2-week hiatus. Oops. But then I got DMs or like, where's the pod? I was like, true, people actually listen to this. That's so nice. So it means the world when you follow up on my schedule and you chase me down for new episodes. So here we are. We're back, baby. For some context, and you guys kind of know this, I was struggling a little bit last year with the move and just how busy everything was with keeping the episodes timely and up to date. I promise now the work back is fixed. All of the episodes are only ever going to be a week ahead. So you're getting timely episodes with real recaps of things happening in my current life. I will say what I liked about the pod last year, this is a bit of an aside, but I was able to be more open and I guess like talk shit a little bit more because things were less timely. Sometimes I think when you give things space, you can kind of come at it from a more aggressive angle. But because now we're very timely with our episodes, I have to watch myself. I have to be a bit more careful. Anyways, all good. We're back. A little bit of context. So I was obviously off. I took January in Los Angeles and then I came back. I went to New York for a really fun Moroccanoil. It's all about hair today for some reason. I was there for a Moroccanoil brand event, and that was really exciting. What was really fun about New York, especially, was that I was coupled up with a bunch of kind of OG Canadian influencers. And it's kind of like summer camp is the best way to describe it. You kind of get reconnected to people that you basically know, but you know them more online than you do in your real life, if that makes sense. And remember that episode where we were talking about like how influencers were calling other influencers their coworkers or their colleagues? It kind of was giving that. I had a resurgence with my colleagues and my coworkers. Anyways, we had a blast. It was just like the true joy of New York. We were like out doing karaoke till 3 a.m. Sometimes those work trips genuinely don't feel like work, and that was one of them. It was one of the PR reps' birthdays, so we were celebrating her birthday. It was so jazzy. We had dinner at the Clam Bar, which is a part of Carbone, very elevated, very chic New York. So yeah, that was kind of 12 out of 10. And then I came back and I went to Dominican Republic last week on a family vacation. That was incredible. You're probably admiring my tan if you're watching the YouTube right now. Thank you so much. It's all real. Normally, it's like a Saint Tropez or a Coco and Eve tan, but today it's real. So that's very exciting for me. I was gone for the week. Sadly, we did have a sickness in the group, and one of my friends ended up in the hospital for 2 days, so that was a little bit aggressive. They came down with a bacterial infection while we were traveling. And I kind of talked about this a little bit on the pod when we were talking about France, because we also had friends get sick in France. And it's really tricky because people will DM me and they'll be like, oh, well, what hotel were you at or where were you staying? And it's like, I'm not really out here trying to give people bad PR or bad press. And the reality is I've been going to this same resort with my family for like 10, 15 years. I'm not here to cancel them or talk shit about them. You can get sick everywhere you travel, and that honestly is just the reality of the game. So anyways, all to say, we made it home in one piece. Everybody's healthy. The tan is fresh, and we're back. And now we are live with new episodes. So let's jump into the topic of the week. So the viral moment on TikTok right now, it's kind of killing me. Timothée Chalamet, the speech at the SAG Awards. He has a really iconic speech when he does his acceptance. And he kind of goes on to say, and I'm sure you've all seen the cut down at this point, where he says, I want to be one of the greats. And he kind of also alludes to the fact that he wants to be seen as iconic. in alignment with some of these other iconic actors, and he names Michael Phelps and people in culture outside of acting. Personally, I really liked it. I thought it was cool. It was fun. It was authentic. It was not taking itself too seriously. There was a bit of zest in the way that he kind of delivered the acceptance speech. But then here's the nuance, because then I was scrolling on TikTok, and women started to kind of explain how if a female actor had given this exact same speech, would it have been received differently? Now, the answer obviously is yes, in my humble opinion. So, and this is kind of what inspired the topic of the week. Who gets to be bold? Like, obviously there is this gendered experience when it comes to the arts and entertainment, and then also the art of unfiltered speech. So it kind of brought up this feeling for me, because there is such a double standard basically when it comes to level of boldness that we're able to have in these public moments, whether it's on social media or during an acceptance speech, or even if it's just a corporate event or a dinner party. Like, I don't think it has to be at the scale where we're talking about celebrity. I really think this trickles down to just everyone in the workforce. But we're obviously using the Timothée Chalamet example today. But obviously men can give up these kind of off-the-cuff, brash, confident speeches like Timothée did. And then everyone on TikTok is like, oh my God, he's so charismatic. He is so rebellious and fun and inspiring. And that's kind of the way it's received. And then when women do the same thing, they're obviously labeled as, this is way too much. Oh my God, they're so dramatic. This is so emotional. Oh, they're just ungrateful. An example that kind of came up for me was Jennifer Lawrence, because she's really outspoken and kind of has that quirkiness, especially when she does her acceptance speeches. And sure, she is beloved, but I don't remember going on TikTok when Jennifer Lawrence was doing acceptance speeches and having everyone praise her, or like when she fell at the Oscars. I don't think people were loving that. They were like, oh my God, like, get a grip, girl. So how do we kind of break down these gendered reactions? And obviously, I'm not here to fix the patriarchy in one day, of course. However, I do think these are just, again, topics that I think are interesting to discuss. And again, from the lens of influencer, are always interesting to discuss. So that's what inspired this week's episode. And for me, I think that women are often forced to be very likable, right? And we see this a lot, especially online. And we don't force men to show up at that same standard. I'm trying to think of a good example. Maybe someone like David Dobrik. So he kind of had a resurgence in January. He had taken basically 3 years off of vlogging. He kind of fell into the cancel culture, if you will, and he stepped away from the camera is like the best way to explain it. He came back in January and he had a vlog, and it went on YouTube, and all of TikTok basically embraced him with open arms. And they're like, David, where have you been? It's been 3 years. We miss you. Oh my God. Like, I have heart palpitations. David is back. And I'm not saying I'm not sitting there right with them. Like, I am a Vlog Squad fan. I will say that loud and clear. I really am. So I was just excited to have him back. But here's the issue. Like, if a woman was canceled, disappeared for 3 years, and came back with a vlog, would we be welcoming them back and celebrating them at that same level? Again, I just don't know, and I don't think so. And obviously I think about this a lot because I show up as a woman online, and I do think that I show up differently than my male counterparts. Not saying that I'm on a David Dobrik level, but I do think that the way that women do show up is not all bad. And I do want to say that because I think being able to show up as a softer version of ourselves, a more thoughtful, introverted version of ourselves, a smart, reflective, creative version of ourselves is in our feminine power and is what makes us amazing. And I think that's fantastic. But on the other side of that, I do think there is a larger conversation, which is how can women in entertainment and digital spaces then lean into that confidence without the fear and backlash, like the David Dobrik's, like the Timothée Chalamets. Do you kind of get where I'm going with this? So this is what led to the thesis then, the thesis of today's episode. Because it really does bother, like, I shouldn't say it bothers me. It sparks something in me. I don't know if it's positive or negative. I was listening to another podcast the other week, and they were talking about the Park sweaters. I'm sure you guys have seen all about this, and the female founder. And she basically, Chelsea Park is her name, she got kind of eaten alive for not having enough numbers essentially when it came to her Valentine's Day drop, and she didn't have enough product available to sell to the amount of demand that she had created online, and people were really pissed off because they were essentially saying, oh my God, this is like scarcity marketing, like you don't actually have enough sweaters to sell, and now whatever. Basically, the internet came for her. And I was listening to other podcasts and they were saying the same sentiments as I am, which is, okay, but would you beat up a man for doing the exact same thing? Like, scarcity marketing is literally a tactic. Not even saying she was doing that. Maybe she wasn't even doing that. It might have just been an accident and she didn't realize how much demand she had created. But even if she did use that as a tactic, all the more power to her. She is a woman in business in 2025. And I don't think that men have to deal with that same judgment. And the other kind of sentiment which came out of this, which is very true, and I agree with all of the TikTokers and the podcasters that were talking about this, is it's always women going after the other women. Like, it's never the men commenting being like, oh my God, you didn't have enough sweaters available. It's other women tearing her down, being like, screw you, you don't understand how to run a business, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So how can we be, one, nicer to each other, and then two, which leads me to the thesis of the episode, act a bit more like men and maybe not do that to each other? Because I do feel like men give each other the space to kind of do their own thing. And again, I'm not saying, listen, I'm a feminist. I feel like I have to start, or now I'm midway through the episode, but I do have to say that because I feel like I don't want it to come across like I'm saying, oh, we have to be like men. That is the only way to be. No, like I said, I think there's parts of our feminine essence that make us so fantastic and wonderful. And these are qualities that are equally powerful. However, what I'm trying to say is, like, please understand the nuance. Like, I think there's just ways that we can leverage what men are doing to actually elevate ourselves and also elevate the female kind of power in the industry and show up in a cool new way, potentially. Okay? So just understand that there's a little bit of nuance here. I'm not saying we have to be like evil men. Okay, so how can we show up a little bit more in our masculine energy? Maybe that is a better way to position it. Number one, rewriting the likability rule. So I find men can be polarizing. However, women are expected to be palatable. And again, I find this in micro scales, whether that's like a dinner party situation, but I also find it on more macro scales, like on social media or in these big sort of like red carpet situations. So the takeaway, I do think that as women, and I include myself in all of these, by the way, like these are things I'm equally working on, shifting away from aiming to be liked by people and instead just aiming to be respected. And I think there is a nice differentiation there, because I think when you want people to really like you, you kind of show up in a different way. And it also means being comfortable not pleasing everyone all the time. Because I do think men rarely do. Like, they're not really concerned about that on a daily basis. But I think as women, we're always like, what are they going to think if I don't show up or do this or complete this task or do that? Like, I think we're so cautious of people's emotions. And again, it is our superpower, but then it's also a weakness at the same time. And because men don't typically fall on that scale, I do feel like it doesn't hold them back as much in conversation, in negotiation, in business, in their personal lives. And I think with women, because we do want to be liked, and I again put myself under this category, we show up differently. And I'll say, like, honestly, I think that probably stops me from posting certain things online or showing up a certain way online, just because I do want people to quote unquote like me. I don't want to come across as too brash or too opinionated or whatever it might be. And I think that can hold me back sometimes. So yeah, I'm throwing myself under the bus as well, because I think we're all guilty of it. So number two, I do think there is a power of owning the room. Now, this isn't gendered, and I hate that this whole episode feels a bit gendered, because I hate that it has to be like men versus women. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm saying there's feminine qualities and there are masculine qualities, and I'm hoping that in discussing this, we can almost leverage both and become better. I hope that makes sense. So one, dropping excessive gratitude. And this one's really hard because I do feel as women, we try to sit in gratitude in a positive way, myself included. I like to do gratitude journals. I like to be thankful for all the opportunities that come my way. But I do think, and again, back to the speech and back to the Timothée of it all, a lot of women will have these big moments in their life and they'll say, oh, I can't believe this is happening to me. Oh, I don't deserve this. Or, oh, I'm just so grateful that this is happening. But notice how men don't really do that. Like, they're just like, oh, I belong here and I got this because I worked hard for it. And they kind of use that direct, assured language. And I do think that empowers them. And I, as a woman, want to work on that and kind of leverage that a bit more because I am someone that will constantly say, oh, I'm just so grateful. I'm so lucky. And it's like, well, no, I'm actually not lucky. I work my ass off. And so isn't that enough? Can't I just say that? Like Timothée, oh, I've actually been working my ass off for 5 years. And so that's why this happened. So it is just like an interesting shift because it feels even uncomfortable for me to say. And I also think the qualifiers, right? We say things like, oh, maybe it's because this happened, or, oh, I feel like maybe. It's like, no, this is just happening because I worked hard. End of sentence. Okay. Commanding attention without apologizing for it. This is the new thing. So if, like I said before, if a woman had made Timothée's speech and critics might say, oh my God, she was so attention seeking. But what's wrong with taking up space? Again, it's a positioning thing. Why do we see that as negative? I don't think it's negative at all. I think being able to walk into a room and have people say, oh, wow, like she's really commanding that space, or, oh, wow, she has such a, I can't tell you the amount of times I have been in a room, shook someone's hand, that is a man, and they call it out. Oh, wow, you have such a strong handshake. I'm like, you'd never say that to another man. And again, I'm not offended by it. I know I have a great handshake. Thank you so much. I am a bold, unapologetic woman. But you would never say that to another man. You would just shake their hand. But when they shake my hand, they're like, wow, beautiful handshake. I'm like, okay, well, I'm just showing up as who I am, so meet me where I'm at. So again, I think it has to go both ways. And this is the other challenge. I think women are doing more work than men when it comes to this topic. So men are just like remaining the same on the same level, and women are trying to level up and kind of assert themselves and show up in this way. The way that my handshake is very deliberate because of the way that my father taught me how to do a proper handshake, whatever it might be. But I do think that women are putting in the work more than men. So there's so many, again, I can't fix these mass issues in one day. These are just topics for us to mull over and have thoughts over and potentially make these small adjustments and small shifts. And then we might see grander change down the line. It might take years, but we might see change down the line. Okay. And then the third thing, and this will translate to kind of the more digital influencer culture, being more assertive in brand deals and negotiations. And I think this one is huge. And we've talked about this under other like themes, I guess, but obviously not underpricing yourself. And then secondly, not over apologizing. And I mean, I'll use myself as an example. I'm going through this right now. I'm negotiating a big deal and some of the contract points aren't meeting up. And in the past, I would have seen myself maybe fold on a few of them and just say, okay, I'm aligned. I'll take the L on this point or whatever it might be. And now I'm kind of at a stage where I'm like, I don't really care. Like literally no. And like no is a full sentence and like that's okay. And I think like having harder lines and having harder boundaries is powerful, and also knowing where those boundaries lie. Like, are you going to let it go as far as losing a deal? Maybe not, but maybe. Like maybe you get to a place where you are so sick of apologizing or saying sorry or, always taking the L or whatever it might be. And I think not letting yourself down in those moments and kind of being stern and understanding your boundaries is like really important. So yeah, again, I'm having all these like side conversations as I'm making these points, but hopefully I'm getting it across. Literally my next point, don't over explain. Oh my God, what have I been doing this whole fucking episode is over explaining, because that is truly I'm speechless. It's literally in our DNA as women that we have to constantly be qualifying ourselves. Oh, I shouldn't say this because someone's going to think that, oh, Tori's taking a really gendered take on what is happening in the digital industry. Yeah, I fucking am. So maybe that's just the case and I can't over explain it. So there you go. Don't over explain your choices or your opinions. So again, under the context of an influencer, I do feel like men, when they make pivots in their content or when they're negotiating, they just sort of do it. And women, like myself included, as we've seen this whole episode, we tend to feel the need to justify every single move. How frustrating. And I actually, this whole episode is an example of this entire topic, which is a little bit shitty because it's very on the nose in the sense that I clearly haven't learned these lessons for myself. But in the same breath, I'm like, okay, well, reflective and potentially a self-induced therapy session because literally what the hell? Like I spent this whole episode justifying everything I said because I think it's difficult for women to show up and just have an opinion, stand on business, and say what they mean fully. Anyway, so the final point, obviously, being unapologetically confident. And I think men do a great job of doing this. They build their empires on self-assurance, and women should do the exact same thing. And that is what I hope I will try to do as I continue into this year, because this episode has proven different. And then just a final thought. So obviously this episode had an arc of me making things gendered and male versus female. And clearly I was qualifying a lot of those thoughts. And I apologize for that because I really do mean what I say. I do think there are such positives to what women bring to the table when it comes to our energy and our influence and our softness and or even our bitchiness, whatever it might be. I think all of that is justified. But I think acting like a man just means acting like you belong. And the reality is men are given more freedom to fail, to be unfiltered, to take up space. And the key takeaway for women, we just need to stop seeking permission. Basically, we just need to stop making ourselves smaller and start treating success like it's a given, not our lucky break. So, all in all, the best way to act like a man is to act like you deserve to be there because you do. End of sentence. I won't qualify it. Okay? Anyway, tyrant of an episode. It's because it's my first one back. Forgive me, for I have sinned probably in all of this. I will see you next week. Take this for what it was. Please leave a comment. Also, final note, please send this episode to a friend. I've realized that in asking to do that, it will really help grow the pod, and I'm so passionate about what we're doing here on That Digital Take, and it would mean the world to me if it was this episode, or maybe not this one because you're like, Tori, you were nuts in this episode, so maybe go back if you have a favorite episode from some of the earlier ones and you send that to a friend. It would mean the world to me. So thank you so much. You can rate us on Apple Podcasts, and I love you guys. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.